All right, so this is the Radical Dudes podcast, episode 1 of a mini-series currently being called TEDPILLED. We're talking about Ted Kaczynski, a.k.a. the Unabomber, a pretty radical dude, if I do say so myself, believer in many things, all of which were correct. Let's talk about it. But first, I'm Raymond. That's my voice that you're hearing. And I'm going to pass it on.
Oh, well, I'm Aaron.
Aaron's killing it. I'm Chris.
All right, for sure. So, we all read the big one, the Manifesto, and I watched the Netflix docudrama TV
both
series.
you guys watched the the fucking series on Netflix. I got bored with it after 2 episodes.
Well, no. Well, Raymond watched a docudrama.
I watched a dramatized actor version.
That would have been so much better.
And Aaron watched the In His Own Words.
Yeah, I watched.
So what I was thinking for a structural thing, possibly, we'll start by just talking about the Manifesto and see how far we get. But if we end up with a lot of material to talk about, we could do a separate one on the other Netflix stuff and just make everybody watch the rest of it.
Oh, but the Netflix stuff, the actual
I just want to talk about Ted. Yeah, about Ted a little bit. You can't talk about.
Well, yeah, totally. But I mean, I think the docudrama deserves its own episode because I have a lot of issues with it.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. The documentary though is it gives a pretty. It's like a sparse background of Ted Kaczynski. They mainly focus on the bombings themselves, while trying to focus on how he got to be a bomber.
There's so many parts from the little bit of documentary I watched that I loved. Just so many parts. There's the part where literally just in the first episode, they're just running through all the bombing super quickly. And then out of no, they also have this old overweight FBI guy that obviously worked on the case. And then one of them is that he bombed a pilot in Chicago, and then immediately the FBI agent was like, yep, since there was a bomb in Chicago, from then on we knew he was in Chicago. No, you didn't. You didn't know shit. You didn't know until fucking David turned him in.
That's the thing, is the FBI didn't know jack shit. He was he was such a good fucking criminal. Because he even did in the documentary, so you watch the first 2. The first episode's probably the worst. After that it gets a lot better. But he would do shit he took pubes off of fucking public bathroom stalls and would put them in the bombs, so it would get off his set
just in case somebody found some DNA evidence. Well, yeah, because also he would drive 3 days from Montana to the Bay Area to deliver the bombs each time, which eventually made them think that he had to be in the Bay Area.
Yes, I don't know if he drove. I think he took a bus, but either way,
he might have taken a bus. Maybe it was he took a bus and used cash. There's some sneaky ways, because I know he didn't own a car.
No, he took a bus, and and then he thought it was in the California area because he bombed Berkeley and shit like that.
And because he had taught at Berkeley.
Yeah, as a mathematician and whatnot. And it's funny what his thoughts are on math now, where it's just it was just a game. It was just puzzles. And I just did it to get enough money so I could get my fucking cabin in the woods.
Yeah, exactly.
And live in
He's
nature.
the truest Chad that could ever chat. All right, he was a fucking nerd for the money of it, so that way he could go and just fucking digress from society.
So he could fuck off and live the dream. Because what I really want to figure out, and maybe the documentary thing has more of this, but how much of his ideology was pre-going to college and how much of it was post. Mm-hmm. Because, he lived somewhat in society, right? He went to college as, a full-ride scholarship to Harvard at 16.
At 16 years old, went to fucking Harvard.
And then got experimented on in an FBI mind control experiment, or CIA mind control experiment.
No, wasn't that crazy, though? In the documentary, it wasn't even a CIA mind, or at least from what the documentary said.
That was MK Ultra, right?
No, it wasn't MK Ultra. Or at least from what I saw. That's what I thought too. Is that it was MK Ultra. No, the fucking experiment was just the guy who did the experiment would just say your ideas are stupid. Your worldview is fucking dead.
It was designed to undermine their worldview, but it didn't work on him. The guy became his friend over a year.
Oh, is that what it was?
And then I think it was supposed to be a whole school year of counseling. and then taking all of the notes that were told in confidence in counseling and using it to basically turn it on its head and tell him why he's stupid, just to see if they could destroy his ideology.
They didn't explain that in the fucking doc. All they said was that, like,
They do in the series, so I don't know. The thing is, and we'll get into this maybe later, but I don't know how much of that is completely fucking made up.
Well, he did
you know?
Mm-hmm.
All I know is that like theory gets posted onto like the front page of Reddit like fucking every year, and it's so goddamn annoying.
Yeah, he got fucking ruined. He got ruined by an MK Ultra.
I believe more than anything that like the FBI shit was pretty much just complete bullshit, and Ted was just very schizophrenic as a person for his entire goddamn life. That just went unnoticed.
I'm actually not even sure he's schizophrenic.
He has low-level schizophrenia. I mean, if you listen to him talk in like interviews now, just like the complete lack of remorse, just like the way he like is as a person and talks about people, he's just very on a different level.
Is that really
maybe? I mean, he might have some sort of like, you know, I don't know, like a problem with empathy, but like on the other hand too, kind of like a lot of times when they found like Nazis and stuff after World War II during like the Nuremberg trials, and they're like, they're not certifiably insane.
Well, because he's not.
He's
not insane. He just was isolated a lot. That's the thing. He
isolated a lot and had an ideology that and a value system that didn't value like individual life as much as like his goals.
I mean,
which like we don't fault at all when it's like, you know, a drone pilot that blows people up, because their ideology says that like they ought to do that for the military. Right, and they blow up a bunch of people, and we're not like, you're a fucking psychopath. You have no remorse about all this.
Well, right? a lot of like if you use that example, a lot of the pilots that were in Vegas that did do a lot of those bombings ended up with severe, heavy alcoholism and have terribly high suicidal rates.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are people who are more fucked up about the atrocious shit they had to do.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is like Ted Kaczynski, like it wasn't even just like, you know, little bombings and whatnot. He wanted to like uproot society, right? And he knew that would involve a lot of people dying. Because in the Manifesto, right, he talks about like there's just too much people and not enough land.
Well, yeah, basically there's not enough land to exist without the system in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So kind of getting into the Manifesto, like I sort of wanted to go through it, not exactly point by point because it's long as shit, but like I feel like the beginning is the most like objectionable part.
The trash and the lefties.
The beginning and the last third is like the stupidest fucking part. Like that's when it gets real.
Yeah,
fucking
where he's
bad.
So it's like he has all these prescriptions, but I think so. He starts off talking about like, you know, the whole so the pre-industrial world was much better than the post-industrial world, and like, you know, the consequences are bad, like, you know, like this kind of thing that like I wasn't totally on board, and I'm still not, because like I don't think that like his conception of like personal liberty really holds up, because like how much personal liberty do you actually have if you're constantly just struggling to meet all of your like needs?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing, is like for him, from what it seems like, from like what I heard from the documentary and the Manifesto, he's literally, you know, that like fucking meme image of like when you evolve, it's not just to survive, like you get that like existential crisis sort of thing once you get to think about things, that sort of thing. Like he's like, when you have nothing in your life other than the idea of surviving, you don't have any of the other stressors in your life of like thinking about like existential consequences or anything like that. Like,
yeah,
he talks
but
about like the
forcing.
Well, he talks about like the euphoria of like when I was starving in my like cabin. Like I didn't think about death or anything like that. I didn't give a fuck. All I cared about was like getting my next meal. You know. So like his thing is like when we get so far and complicated as a society, and we get the chance to like think about life and like where our life is going. We end up getting depressed and shit, essentially. Is what
right, but like, so he's for putting people in a situation where they need to not think about things to survive, but he's against forcing people to be modified
by society. It's so fucking weird.
Right, like it feels like the society he wants is going to force people to act within a very narrow framework, And then, like, but what he's against is a different, very narrow framework for society to make people, like, act within.
Well, that's the thing,
if that
right?
makes any sense.
Well, no, it makes
the exact society that he wants is like what he goes through in paragraph 75, which he's like, a young man goes through the power process by becoming a hunter, hunting not for sport or for fulfillment, but to get meat that is necessary for food. He talks about young women for a little while and how it's different. This phase having been successfully passed through, the young man has no resistance about setting down the responsibilities of raising a family. And then we suggest the fulfillment they need is adequate experience of the power process with real goals instead of artificial goals of surrogate activities. And then eventually they would die. That's the ideal society.
Is that you have your...
And, like, I just, as someone who has lots of surrogate activities that they enjoy and stuff, like, it just doesn't feel like that's something that I think everyone would want. Like, I just feel like there's something missing in that kind of worldview to, like...
What I think Ted Kaczynski would argue is that, like, you have been altered by the system. You've been altered by society.
Well, of course,
by
but I mean, like...
advertisers, right?
Just to get the clear definition
letting
of...
everyone...
The clear definition of what Ted Kaczynski wants
die.
right now is just, like, the power process, as he fucking put it, because he's pretentious in all of his shit, so he needs to have the power process, which is... that there's
I mean, honestly, like,
goal,
it
effort,
reads like a
entertainment
college man, for sure.
Oh, yeah, he emphasizes words very boldly. I don't know if Aaron noticed that because he had the audiobook, but, like,
I noticed
parts of it. Bold lettering.
Wait, real quick. The audiobook that Raven and I both looked at was by a guy named Augustus Sol Invictus, okay? Now, if you can't tell from the name, the guy is a white nationalist libertarian. Okay.
He's also a good orator.
No,
I think he did a good job. No, I think the book reading was good.
No. Because the first half, it's like he sounds like a regular dude without like any sort of accent, and then by the third part, like the last part of it, when he's like really critiquing liberalism,
by leftists part 2.
Yeah, leftist part 2. The guy really gets into like this faux South Carolinian like accent.
I don't know if it's faux. I think it's slipping out as he's like. I feel like he's just going like, okay, I've been recording this shit for 3 fucking hours, or probably for 10, and then editing it down.
Like, maybe he's getting, like, hyped up or whatever, because he's like...
Or just tired, dude. Like, just, like, worn out, not thinking about it as much. He's, like, not on his presentation.
It feels like somebody doing a bad impression of somebody from South Carolina when he's doing it. Like, it sounds like somebody...
I mean, he might just be a weirdo.
But he's from Florida. Like, he's from the South.
Is he? Okay, I don't know anything about this guy.
Yeah, I read a little bit about him, because he was
like Florida, I could see Florida.
He really takes the colloquialism that Ted Kaczynski wants into society, and he sort of spreads it out throughout the reading.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, after reading Ted Kaczynski's shit, I understand why white nationalists or paleo-conservatives or reactionaries in general really meme about this guy a lot. Because, he...
Well, yeah, and I think that, like, because I think he makes a thing where he's talking about conservatives, and he's like they're so I forget.
I have the
exact literally
one. I don't even understand where their ideology.
No, I have it right here. It's the conservatives are fools. They whine about the decay of traditional value, yet they enthusiastically support technological progress and economic growth. Apparently, it never occurs to them that you can't make rapid, drastic changes in the technology and the economy of a society without causing rapid changes in all other aspects of the society as well, and that such rapid changes inevitably break down traditional values.
That's literally his only line about conservatives. It's just that one fucking paragraph.
He literally just calls them fucking idiots, like, out of nowhere.
Well, that's the thing is I feel... So this is kind of one of my thesis-y things out of this, is I think the reason he needs to, like, contest leftism so much is just because it, like... is the only other ideology proposing any solutions to the problems that he's listing.
Okay,
right. So like, I feel like there's a certain rivalry between his thing and sort of like, because like that's the other flavor of radical change seekers out there.
I took it more that like Ted is just the fucking Chad of nihilism, like the most nihilistic fucking person ever. And so he sees basically leftists with basically having their existentialism and like floating throughout society that he calls like surrogate activities. He's fucking pissed off at them because they're not pure nihilists enough like him. No, they're the fucking cretins that are trying to hold out hope for society, and that undermines everything that his pure nihilism goes to. I mean, he's biological nihilism that at our core, all we can do is hunt, eat, and die, and then maybe we'll be happy. That is his level of fucking nihilism.
Oh, that's so true. That's all it is.
I don't know. It just feels so like completely assumed, right? Like I'm looking at his little section on the feelings of inferiority thing, where he's like, they tend to have these such feelings, and like when someone interprets something derogatory or about, whatever, like we could include that he has feelings of inferiority or low self-esteem. Like I don't get like where this is coming from. Like, it sounds like some dumbass, like, Jordan Peterson shit right now.
That's exactly what it is. It's nature Jordan Peterson. That's all this fucking is.
You know what it is? When I was reading this, the first thing I thought was, like, this is fucking Elliot Rodger, dude. Like, you read the first fucking sentence.
Yeah,
about, like...
it is. It's like the white dude who's, like, old and has kind of, like, used to be comparatively progressive and then, like, fell behind the times and, like... doesn't want to keep up with all the new language.
It's a little bit more than that. Ted Kaczynski was like a NEET, essentially. Like even before he was like a real NEET in the woods.
Yeah, he didn't follow like any pop culture or anything like that. Or he had no TV. He didn't have a phone, I don't think.
Yeah, no, he didn't. And the thing was, he wasn't good with the women either. Kind of hated women in a sense. There was in the documentary they talked about like he was working at a factory with his brother, and there was a girl that he was dating, and she eventually broke it off. And so what he would do as retaliation, he started like pasting up these limericks of him talking about how bad she was in a real nasty, probably perverted way or something like that.
Yeah. In something that ends up just mostly being super cringy on his part.
Yeah, and he never fucked either. He never fucked. There's actually...
Oh, he's a virgin?
Yeah, he's a virgin. And he actually talked about...
Yeah, I know he fell... He and a lady fell in love with one another through letters while he was in prison.
No.
And she died of cancer in 2006.
Oh, fuck.
Which apparently really fucked him up for a long time.
Well, probably because it's the first time he ever felt love for somebody, besides, like, familial love or whatever, right? And, like, the thing was, another fucked up thing was, like, he was just a lonely guy his entire life. And one of the things he tried to do is he thought about transitioning to being a woman, because all he wanted to do was to feel a female's touch. Like, that's in his own fucking words, in, like, his journals through, like, college and shit like that. Like, he wanted to... It wasn't because he felt gender dysphoria. It's just that he felt fucking lonely.
Yeah, and he thought that people... That like, being someone else might solve his problem.
Well, no.
That's weird that he would try to transition, because he talks about in the manifesto how he thinks transsexuality is, like, a failure, or, like, some... like. Basically, one of the things that is also, like, causing mass depression among society.
And that's what's so fucking weird. Yeah, because he compares it when he talks
what
about...
is it with the fucking... The college conservative folks that's just like, this is the big deal. This is the hill to die on. Like, that's what's causing society's problems. And it's like a fucking 0.1% of the people.
Yeah.
Like, basically...
It's not a common thing.
This is the exact way that, like, Ted frames it, is that... It is true that all was not sweetness and light in primitive societies. Abuse of women was common among the Australian Aborigines. Transsexuality was fairly common among some of the American Indian tribes. So he basically assumes that abuse of women and transsexuality are on pretty much the same level of being a problem of society.
Yeah, which is like... I don't know. Every now and then I know he goes out of his way to, like, try and mention that, like, different, like, men and women can do stuff, and, like, there's a few times he talks about, like, whatever, he's like, this is not to say we're against social justice or so. Like, he's not like this super... He's not as Flanderized as today's curmudgeonly assholes.
But he kind of is, though, because, like, at the same time, like, as Chris said, he thought of transgenderism as being a problem or something like that. Like, having a different gender identity was something that was a problem in primitive society, but, like, less than... and I don't know, I haven't read it, but maybe he thought of it as, like, body dysmorphia of some sort of mental... illness or something like that. But then, he talks...
Yeah, I mean, this definitely would have been the time of, transmedicalist kind of stuff.
Sure. I mean, also, too, but he has this thing about, like, doing anything like it's like psychology is something that he thinks is like a huge like issue when it comes to society nowadays, right? Like he has a huge problem with psychologists and like trying to change
psychologists and psychiatry and just trying to fit people into the mold, which I feel like, you know, like having gender dysphoria and being trans is like one of the more not in the mold things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know, he definitely treats the system as like it is a monolith. It has a direction, and like it's going this way. But something like that, where like, you know, psychology and sociology might be kind of trying to ease people into the system when you look at it some ways, but then like trying to get, instead of trying to break trans people into just remaining cis, trying to get them to be comfortable with themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know, that doesn't scream like forcing you to be a part of the system, and if you can't conform, you have a sickness, and if you have a sickness, they'll fix you.
Well, even then, you can even not even
right,
talk
like that
about...
sounds like conversion therapy.
Well, if we were going from like the way he described it, yeah, sure, like, because he describes it as like this really coercive system when you go to like a psychologist or something like that. Because like you could even say like bipolar individuals can't like fucking function in our system without talking to like a psychologist or a psychiatrist or something like that.
Yeah, where someone who's bipolar totally could survive in a much simpler world. Like it's not a new thing. People have had it before. You know, and like, I guess it just, I'm wondering if it's, you know, kind of like having glasses or something where like, you know, the people who had the worst eyesight just didn't pass on the traits, but now they can.
Well, I mean, that's part of his thing too, is like, that's part of it, like people rely on technology now.
One of the things fucking he hates is diabetes, alright? The first thing we're doing when we get the technology is that we are having eugenics diabetes. That is Ted's first move.
Well, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's diabetes is basically symbolic of the problem for him, where it's like, you know, oh, no one in a world where you had to hunt for your food exclusively would become diabetic without a society. Like you can't become diabetic on like type 2.
Well, that's what I love about his fucking, like, he's probably the only person that I've heard like talk about society and call society instead of being like really, you know, precise in what society they're talking about, where I don't feel cringy, because he literally just wants to fucking dismantle society. Like he wants a bunch of like fucking not even like necessarily hunter-gatherer like tribes. It seems like he kind of wants just a bunch of fucking like hermits and their families like living together.
Well, so that's the thing, is he keeps talking about like the dangers of collectivism and how like, you know, you need to work like primitive societies.
Yeah.
But then he also talks about how like any society is prison.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, like so it's like which I don't know which one he wants. Like, you know, because like it seems like he has to, you know, like live within some kind of system, right? Like, you know, there's always going to be a person who can watch the fire while you go hunt, or like the person who is going to weave the clothes while the other person gathers food. Like, you know, specialization and like multiple person jobs have existed before humans.
Yeah.
And so like almost nobody that exists can be like a solo complete man in the wilderness.
Yeah, he tries to say that like in like the American like pioneer days, you'd like go into the open wilderness and like build your log cabin and whatnot, and like live your life out with your family or whatnot. But like I don't think, once again, like you can't really do that. And when I think about,
you can't do that with the amount of land we have now.
Yeah. Well, and also too, I'd say like if we did go to an An-Prim society or something like that, somebody at some point could still like be like, well, I want to make more tools or make a, you know, not make a factory. Even
I mean, this is the kind of problem with stuff like, you know, jumping immediately from the current system to like, you know, like full on, not anarchy in the leftist sense of like, you know, anarcho-syndicalism or anarcho-communism, but like just having no ruling structures and no plan, and no like pre-education for all of that, would just hop back into feudalism.
The like, person that like starts to make tools is just gonna control people again. The person that, like, I don't want to follow my tribe's rules, and then they actually get, like, more shit, is just going to control
or the first tribe that just goes like, well, yeah, of course, what if we just competed again? Like, it could easily happen that way.
Unless we had the extreme, like, social conditioning that he has a problem with. Where we tell people...
Yeah, and so, like, his whole idea where he's like, we need to train people to want to have an anti-technology revolution.
But then also, like, be against training people to fit
right,
into
so
the
it's
system?
like, he's like, okay, so you train them one time, and there's the revolution, you destroy the technology, you burn the books, it's the Dark Ages again, mythologically. Obviously, the real European Dark Ages did not work that way, because we retained a ton of that technology just in different places, and it didn't really all go away, because it all fucking came back. Like, he's like it has to be worldwide.
But that's not gonna happen.
Which is the thing with any big revolution, right? Like, you're not gonna have, like, you know, like, straight up, like, democratic socialism happen in one major country without every other country destroying it. And Prim is not gonna fucking happen.
There's no way you're gonna have, like, a worldwide movement where, like, you're gonna, like,
that's
destroy
like one of his
everything.
main problems, like, in his fucking manifesto, is that he ostracizes basically everyone that would support his manifesto in writing it. Like, he basically bashes every other group to the point where, like, the only people that would probably support this would be cultural Marxists, like eco-fascists, and radical environmentalists. No, he talks shit about radical environmentalists too.
Well, he talks shit about them, but he also says that, like, they're one of the closer ones to the mark. Yeah. Like, the ones that he hates the most seem to be like state socialists.
Well, I mean, because he does talk about, like, fucking the problems with, like, the Soviet Union, and that's his. And
then he's like, and they're quick to talk about how bad America is, but they don't even want to talk about how bad the Soviet
Vietnam.
Union is.
Was it Vietnam?
And it just was like, man, okay, maybe it's because we live when we do, like, in a decently, like, we were born post Cold War.
Yeah.
But, like, every leftist I know, like, in person, is totally fine with talking about the horrors of the Soviet Union or Mao's China.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a big problem.
Yeah, they can talk shit about the United States
leftists.
And China. Or what specifically was that? Fuck, who was he even talking about in his manifesto? Was it Vietnam? I forget exactly.
He did mention, I think it was something about us going into Vietnam and, like, people talking about that kind of, like... Yeah, he's like, they'll talk about American colonialism, but then when you want to talk about Soviet colonialism, like, nobody wants to talk about it.
And they do. I mean, there's a very... There's not a lot of groups that, like, really will, you know, defend the Holodomor and all that shit, unless they're actually
and it's like, all right, and, like, some of those exist, but, like, they're not super relevant to, like, general politics.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, but the whole, like, I think you could have a country go Prim if it had very, very little resources and no aggressive neighbors. So like Iceland could probably do it. Like, maybe Madagascar, maybe.
Yeah,
actually, I don't know. Madagascar probably has, like, some... I mean, they have a rainforest that people could destroy.
Take their trees and shit.
They're like, obviously,
but so
like...
there are some places in like, you know, in South America, Southeast Asia, and in Central Africa that are basically Prim, right? Like, you were in that world music class. You know, the Mbudi?
Yeah, the pygmies, dude, slapping the water.
Yeah. they're primming it up.
And they're happy
they
as
seem
fuck.
to be. They actually do seem to be pretty
happy,
satisfied.
Yeah.
But, like, at the same time, like, that just doesn't work for everyone in the world.
No. So weird.
You know, all it takes is one fucking person to become the next Genghis Khan, and then all the Prims are fucked.
Well, under his idea, we would still be happy under Genghis Khan because we would feel more freedom. Because we chose to be living next to Genghis Khan. Not that society made us go next to Genghis Khan.
And I think this is, like, the biggest problem I have with this fucking manifesto is that he talks about,
the freedom ideal. Yeah,
not the freedom. It's the historical relativism, right? He's like, well, we know that primitive like societies were, like, the best thing mentally and, like, physically for people, but those societies fell. You know, so like we know by precedent that they don't fucking work because people will try and make tools and shit like that.
Yeah,
so
well,
he completely,
so, like, I get...
wait. Like he completely dismisses like leftist ideology for like, well, we haven't tried it, so we don't have any precedent to tell like if it works. Well, we can tell that like this doesn't work because it fucking died, and it will die because somebody will come along and say like, oh yeah, or somebody that's smarter will figure out like tools and shit like that, and then fucking kill you. Like that's what happens. Like, we saw that with colonialism. Like, Europe, like, they developed a more complex system and were able to exploit more people. Or at least the upper crust were, right? Like, and his thing is, like, it's about technology being bad. And it's not really about technology being bad. It's about who fucking controls technology, you know? Like, it's so frustrating, man.
Yeah, well, it's kind of that thing where it's like, okay, so your revolution has to be global and universal, and it has to kind of all happen at once.
Yeah.
For it to work. And, like, even if that happened, like, the thing that I just can't get past with this is, like, all of this stuff is scientifically knowable. Mm-hmm. And so if we destroy all of the available information, what's to say we're not going to reinvent it? And I know he kind of touches on that near the end where he's like, well, what if they just develop technology all over again? He's like, well, we're going to have to let the far future worry about that one. And, like, okay,
so he's contradicting himself then. Because, like,
well, it's not even just a contradiction. It's just saying that, like, I think his whole idea, it's pretty black-pilled, right? He's like, okay, socialization and having a society and a big system the way we do is going to develop further and further to crush us more and more. Mm-hmm. There is nothing we can do to reform it. It will reform us before we reform it, and like everything we do is either going to be in service of it or we're going to have to destroy it. And so he's like, even if we destroy it once, it might come back, but we have to at least try to destroy it. Mm-hmm. Well, right? Like,
time is a flat circle.
That kind of thing.
That's Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski is fucking Matthew McConaughey.
Time is
True Detective.
True Detective.
Yeah, truest nihilism ever, baby. I know it.
Hey, so we've been pretty negative on him, but like, what are the positives that like we've heard? Because like I could say like. Do
you want to talk about his approach towards scientists? That would be like a cool way to like talk about it. He does have a cool take on what he believes scientists are doing for like their own thing. Like, do you remember the whole like section he had on scientists?
Yeah, I do, and it was about like, well, that like they never fulfilled with like the goals that they do, and as well too like. All sciences are kind of connected, but you're only like, you know, interested
well, he believes
in one
that
field.
He basically tries to just take down the idea that scientists are good for society because they work to reform the parts of society that the powerful want to reform. And so basically he takes the idea that curiosity does not drive scientists. He has like a fucking dumb reason for it because he's like chemists don't care about human biology and human biologists don't care about chemists.
Yeah,
if they really cared about everything, they would be curious about everything. Boom, logicked you, which is like his dumb argument.
Yeah,
but I thought it was kind of
super great. I think his thing about just like the way, and I know this isn't like he's not the first person to say any of this stuff, but like his sort of, you know, okay, so every single time we introduce a new tool, it starts out as an optional convenience that's pretty nice.
That's a good one.
And before too long, the people who are in power all have it. So then the people in power who all have it start reshaping the world to fit it better.
Yep.
Right? And so like cars is one of his examples where he's like, okay, so you start out, cars are this cool luxury. We can all drive it if we want. It gets you where you want to go faster, but like no one's really stopped from walking. And then you look at like new industrial plans for cities, and they're all built around roads, parking garages, like you cut freeways right through cities. Like it makes it really hard to walk anywhere, especially on the West Coast where it's like everything's more spread out. You know, like there's people who can't walk to the grocery store, you know, in less than an hour.
Food deserts, you know, like there's all these different things that are built upon travel. So, like, you need a car now to actually, like, fucking survive. Like, it's not just a luxury. Yeah. It's no longer a luxury. It's a necessity. And, like,
like, I remember having... Because, like, fridges... I remember just thinking about this as I was, like, getting a fridge for the first time, because I had just always grown up having one. But, like, the way to have the food the cheapest is to have a fridge and a freezer, because you can buy refrigeratable and frozen foods, and it's actually harder to find a balanced diet of dried and other types of like preserved foods, and you can't keep fresh food that long. So like now the way to afford food long term and in bulk is by owning a freezer, right? Like I had to get a smartphone because like my work only sent out the schedule via a photo that I couldn't view on my old flip phone.
And the thing too, like when it came to cell phones, they were a novelty in the 90s, and now they're essential now. And it's about less than 30 years, and that's happened. Like you need it to do Uber. You need it to. I mean, my boss.
No,
for
dude,
example,
there's a whole bit. I'm gonna see if I can find where he talks about the service industry.
Oh, I listened to that on the ride home.
Okay,
where he basically says that we're all, like, the way that life is going to go. Basically, this is all just like a take on like capitalism. You could go, if you have the actual
so
quote.
he's got, so it's it has been suggested, for example, that a great development of the service industries might provide work for human beings, and this is when he's talking about automation. Thus, people would spend their time shining each other's shoes, driving each other around in taxi cabs, and making handicrafts for one another, working on waiting each other's tables, etc. This seems to us a thoroughly contemptible way for the human race to end up, and we doubt that many people would find fulfilling lives in such pointless busywork. They would seek other dangerous outlets, drugs, crime, cult, hate groups, unless they were biologically or psychologically engineered to adapt them to such a way of life. And that one just made me go, like, I was mid-sentence, kind of listening to this in one ear, talking, and then I was like, oh, God fucking damn it. Because it's
everything he talks about, like, his, like... Basically, the one thing he got really, really right was how late-stage capitalism plays out in society. That is, like, his, like, the accoutrement that he fucking perfects in this. That he's, like, on the fucking money.
Yeah. And, like, because, that whole, like, and this is before smartphones, right? This is before app-based businesses and industries. But, like, everyone right now is fucking DoorDash and Uber and Etsy stores and, like,
gig-based
all this stuff
shit,
that's, like... And it's kind of was a convenience, and now there's people who either, like, I know people who need to use Uber to get to work.
Right,
because we haven't built a BART line out to fucking Livermore. Like, there's people who, like, make their whole living on Etsy selling, like, novelty crafts of other pop culture things. Like, look, I made Star Wars hats out of... this stuff. Here's my Marvel movie, fucking knickknacks.
So
it's like we're
Ted knew OnlyFans was gonna be a thing before any of us.
he knew that fucking
honestly,
Marvel.
I think he even said at some point, he was talking about, he's like we have no problem with sex work and pornographers or something.
Did he
like
really?
that. This was about the thing with when his manifesto was published. One of the places he sent it to was Penthouse.
Oh, that's rad. That's based. That's cool.
He understands that.
Coomer fucking Ted. Hell yeah.
Well, he even said, he's like fucking is important. Sex and relationships and status are all important things psychologically.
But
he's like the over pursuit. Well, so basically, it's a surrogate desire for something we can't have because of the fucked system.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's like as anti-it as he is the system.
Well, it's a
There's
surrogate.
he has very specific passages where he talks about how much he wants to raw dog in society and how society has implemented safe sex and how we as a society can no longer fuck because we got to keep birth rates down.
Did I miss him saying he wanted to fuck?
He mentions it about 3 times. Yeah, because he talks about like the freedoms that it's when he's talking about freedoms, and then he mentions that like society says you can have sex, but only if you wear condoms and have safe sex.
Modern science society in certain respects is extremely permissive in the matters that are irrelevant to the functioning of the system, which is like, that's one of those. So I had this kind of outline when I was starting to read this, because like, he goes, I was thinking he kind of, everything he says is in like a 3-stage process where he has like the description, the assumption, and the prescription, right? So he's like the description where he's looking at one of the problems. He goes, oh, this is, whatever. Like the Industrial Revolution caused huge population stuff, urban squalor, the commodification of everything. And then he makes like these assumptions where he's like, oh, so obviously it was worse than it used to be before because there's bad things now. Old, good, new, bad. And then his prescription is blow everything up and go back.
Yeah.
Right? And like, I feel like a lot of his descriptions are pretty on the mark.
Oh, yeah.
Except for the, all that college campus stuff. It just feels very silly.
Yeah.
Very, fucking Turning Point USA.
Well, I think his
but
thing
like
with
all the rest of his like just how society works is like, I don't know, it's pretty spot on for a lot of those. Like one of the ones he talks about as a surrogate desire or a surrogate goal is like excessive money making, which is something that I've definitely like thought before as far as having like, I used to compare it to like obesity, where it's like we have a certain drive to eat food, but in some people there is just a much stronger drive that turns it into like a habit, and sometimes it can compensate for other things.
Yeah, so you want to make your billions and billions, even though like you're fine, like you're just hoarding all this wealth and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's not. Yeah, he's not wrong on that. Fuck, what was I thinking about? He had a.
Oh, one bit. Yeah.
No, you go.
Oh, I was gonna say one bit he had too. I was just thinking about the leftist thing, where he's like, "Oh, they're too passive. They're babies. They can't do anything because they hate themselves." And then he's like, "Why are they protesting so loud? Why are they so hostile? Wouldn't it be better for affirmative action if they were nicer to white people?"
I don't know
it's
about
like, literally
you.
no.
People.
Literally, that's not how it works. Like he of all people should know that like you don't just change the system by asking nicely, and you don't change the system by like cooperating every single time. Like there's times to cooperate and there's times not to. And so, like, when you're going, oh, like, why are the civil rights people so mad?
And it's like, you're literally fucking killing people. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, because he's basically a class reductionist, where he's like, everything distracts from the greater goal of stopping technology. Exactly. And, like...
That's where I get, like, kind of confused, because I'm not sure, when Marx says, like, not focusing on race and all those other things, just focusing on class. He's not trying to say that, like, race isn't a problem, or that, like, there isn't, like, things that, like, affect people because of their race. He's just trying to say that, like, you shouldn't focus on race, because the main thing you should focus on is, like, who controls the means of production and everything. Well, Ted's, like, fuck technology. Like, that's what we should focus on. Just fuck technology, instead of focusing on, like, who controls technology and the power and whatnot.
Yeah, and I feel like that's just, like, the way to make yourself vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Because you're not gonna win the anti-tech war against the tech people.
By destroying tech. Like,
you won't be able to destroy all of the technology, so then you're gonna be the people without it, and there's going to be people with it.
Or people are going to discover it, like, even if you do destroy it. Like, it's just...
Yeah, we rediscovered concrete. Like, that happened, it's not impossible, because they're all makeable, discoverable things. We can do that again and again. We accidentally, or incidentally, I guess more, developed written language in multiple different continents, independent of one another.
So that's why I'm interested to see, like, if it in his writings, besides the Manifesto, if he actually, like, adequately defines what he says is tech, or what is acceptable tech at the very least.
Yeah, well, because he does outline within this small scale technology and system dependent technology, which I think is like a pretty good difference. Where he's like, okay, so you can make your own spear, you can make your own water wheel. With tools you find outside. You can't make your own refrigerator, right? It requires, like, freon and, like, aluminum parts.
A bunch of minerals
and, like,
and shit, yeah.
So it requires a system to exist. And he's basically saying more and more of our technology post-industrial has been, like, system-dependent technology.
Yeah. Well, once again, it requires society. It requires people working together and whatnot, which he seems not to be into, but to be into at the same time.
I think he's saying that like the systems are too big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's basically people are put into like small labor forces in order to adequately produce these new technologies, and that leads to more degradation to his power process throughout time, and then more and more human suffering. And so basically small little handy things, build a nice little workbench, have a nice little water wheel for your grandma on grandma's day, that's fine. But, building Samsung Galaxies, whoa, now people are starting to get sad. Whoa, that's bad.
But I mean, once again, like, couldn't you change that with, like, workers owning the rights to their labor, like they
No, because as Ted would say, society would allow you to do that, so that society already taking away your freedom because they said yes or no.
And
so
like,
we would still be sad.
I get the like underlying feeling to that, right? Like, as someone who has like every now and then sort of struggled with that sort of like any society is prison kind of attitude, like I've definitely gone through the like, man, why, like, we have to work to live. I don't want to do any of that shit.
See,
like,
Ted Kaczynski was teaching fucking math at Berkeley, and then one of the students was like, hey, Ted, it's a nice day outside. Can we go outside for class? And he was like, if only. And then, boom, he figured out he just had to send bombs and we'll have class outside. That's his dream.
That's all it is. You don't even have class. You're just outside all the time. That's
exactly. He said the adolescent wants to be in nature.
It's like homeschool outside.
I mean,
which, like, for me, I feel like this, like, Anprim is something you have to treat like anarcho-communism, where you just kind of have to fuck off and do it with your own community within the system for it to ever work.
But Anprim seems like
on a small scale.
Anprim doesn't even seem like there really is a system, really. It just kind of seems like...
Well, no, but like so you have to like how he was living sort of an Anprim-ish lifestyle, out in the middle of nowhere on land that he bought, right? So you'd have to basically create your own tribe and live in a region that you own, and like even that would not be full freedom, right? Because there's still like you still don't have the mineral rights to the land, you still don't have like, exclusive. You still have to get hunting licenses or whatever, depending on where you are.
Well, with Anprim,
right? So like you're never totally free. What's up? No. I'm saying you have to build it within a country that already exists. There's no free and open country.
Yeah. Because you're never gonna get
so
that.
Like,
yeah. You got you.
Like if you were, but that's the thing is like if you were militant enough, you would still need some technology, like guns and shit, but like you could try to take an area of a less militarized country.
So maybe they wouldn't come in, as you were saying with Madagascar, right? Like if they don't have
or
resources.
There's like I was thinking like if they wanted to do it themselves, but I think they're still pretty overpopulated as far as like who could live off the land. So somewhere like Iceland, where it's like the least densely populated country in Europe, and they already have to do a lot of their own farming and stuff. I mean, they still ship in a ton of shit, but like, supporting 300,000 people is a lot easier than a couple mil.
Yeah, and then America or other capitalist countries won't come in and fuck you up because you have no resources and you have no power.
Yeah, they already don't really provide that much. Where if like America did it, other countries would just swoop in and steal our shit or just like knock us over.
That's the problem with trying to just do it with like current day society, is that all the fucking land that you could possibly like make your stake on is just dog shit because no one else fucking wants to live there right now.
Yeah,
that's
it's
like
basically what we
thing.
have with like Native American reservations.
Yeah.
Which
Ted Kaczynski, very pro Native American throughout all of this. Very pro.
Very pro.
He might have had a little bit of that white guy, like, they're closer to nature.
Well, no,
they ate every part of the buffalo.
Well, no, he's actually still a little bit. I read like 10 seconds worth of his like actual reading, the collective reading of Ted Kaczynski. And no, he talks about a bunch of different like fucking tribes and shit, not just Indians. He talks about like the Boonties. What the fuck is that African tribe that's like every fucking race? You know what I'm talking about?
Wait, there's a tribe that's every race?
Well, it's one of those ones that like people go like, oh yeah, you can see like Asian facials in them and stuff like that. Like
it's kind of like a Pokemon of sort of like African tribes, a collecting one of all. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Sure. But like he has an interest in non-industrialized societies.
Exactly. It's not just Native Americans. He has a chapter in his collective writings where it's him critiquing primitive society, and I haven't read it enough yet to see. All I've seen is just him talking about how their work, like people talk about like that the primitive workday was less, and him saying that the primitive workday was actually more is what I'm seeing. Is that
a lot of that, from a little bit of what I know, depends on what you determine as like work.
That's what he talks about too, as well. Is like what they determined as work. Because he'd say like the hunting was part of the work, but they didn't dictate like the skinning and the cleaning of the meat and stuff like that wasn't dictated.
Well, because when you're just surviving, it's kind of like everything's work.
Yeah, and that's what's fucking lame about this society is like everything's fucking work, and like with Ann Prim, that's what they want is like everything to be work, so you can't like fucking think about shit. Like that.
Yeah, which to me feels just as restrictive
as what he talks about
in a different way as like big socialized systems.
Or like as he describes the people that like don't want to rise up, that are just like animals or whatnot. They're just like doing their shit. And it's like, that does suck, but like they don't care because like they feed into the system and they believe in the system.
And well, the other thing too is when he talks about like, all of the things are, oh man, I forget what it is. If he's like, when your phone rings, you jump up and go get it. Like it's so who's really in charge? And it's like, well, there's a person on the other end making the phone call, right? Like there's people on both ends of it.
Well, what you could
it's all to serve still human need. Even if there's a system designed to serve it, like...
Well, no, you're serving the system, though. That's the thing. It's like, if you... Like, when I think about, like, Vosh and his emails that he has a problem with, like, attending the emails, right? And, like, he has to respond to, like, 46 emails for his job and whatnot. And that's for his job. He can't, like, just, like, not
Sure, but I mean, like, there's all sorts of recreational uses for all of these things that like aren't exactly like they're dependent on the system existing, but they aren't feeding into it. Like my grandma calling my mom to say hi is not like feeding into the system.
But that goes into like the thing about like it used to be like a casual thing. It used to be like something that like the rich would do, like say with cars or phones or whatnot. It used to be just like a sort of luxury good, and now it's becoming a need for if you want to do a certain job or jobs in general. For the most part, you need a cell phone. You need to respond to your emails immediately. So like if you're a Twitch streamer or a YouTube streamer, you need to respond to all your emails that day, and you have like 34 emails or something like that. Which is
mostly
crazy.
what I'm thinking is like he treats the system and what you have to do in the system as like this big monolithic thing that only goes one way. Like he's got this very like all humans have completely fed into the system. We're all subservient to it. Everything we do is mindless, thoughtless, unquestioning access to the system, and the system has complete control over everything we do, right? Like, but I don't know almost anyone who like never questions how any of that stuff works. Like maybe my little brother, but like not that many people. I feel like most people have a little bit of an awareness about like the systems around them, and like that's part of why I think a lot of people somewhat resonate with this whole like writing.
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
it's not just that though. Like there's a little bit more to it. Like the superficial shit, definitely. I mean, that's something that like probably introduced a lot of people into like, the bullshit of like consumer culture and stuff like that in the 90s, the bullshit of like consume product and all that, like it's a lot of people follow your brother's like rhetoric, and they follow the consumer like the Kardashians.
Yeah, I mean, he's totally wrapped up in the like
celebrity culture.
Takes all advertising at face value.
Yeah. And at the time of the 90s, that was super radical shit. And it's still radical now, I would say, considering like how much it is against like just entertainment and connection in general too. Like I would still say it's still very radical and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean there is some stuff where it's like considered weird not to like listen to the radio or watch TV or go see movies.
Yeah, I mean, well, it still is weird to an extent. Like you can't like. You kind of need to connect to your coworkers, need to know about the mainstream TV shows that everyone's talking about, the movies, the Marvel movies and everything. It's
yeah, where it's like definitely I totally feel the like, man, fuck that shit. It's awful.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I still have other media things that I like.
Yeah, and you can connect to those people, and that's where like they're a little more
niche. But honestly, that's where I kind of feel like I don't know. I don't because my main contention with this is that I don't think that any of his solutions will stop the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like I think the only way to retain any kind of dignity at all is to like make the system less all-consuming, less confining, less mandatory. Like fight for keeping it as non-restrictive as possible.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like his thing is like the people that are in power are going to control technology, and it's like, well, then yeah, let's change it to like the people being in control to be the actual people or whatnot. Like
yeah. I mean, you'll have again. It's one of those like.
But then he like also like his problem right there is that he thinks that like the people that are going to then assume power are the only people that want power, and so we'll just have the same thing over and over and over again.
But he wants power too. He says that it's natural to want power or whatever, right? Like that's
but I mean, so that's the thing is he refers to the, like governmental control as like excessive power, right? Like when he's talking about like the power process.
Yeah, the power process.
It's just like that's like saying self-actualization, right? Like it's you want to feel control over your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like this whole point of fucking nihilism, where he's like, life is meaningless, and the only way we can actually like extrapolate any sort of like meaning or happiness from it is through gaining power, and that's like basically it. Yeah, he's basically teaching AA just in fucking like nature AA. That's his whole fucking point.
Yeah, that's very
pretty
true.
Cool.
That's actually like a pretty good
Technophiles Anonymous.
Yeah, I love the term, the technophile. That's such like a gross term that he uses.
That was a word that he used a lot that was really
the technophile.
Cool. Made you feel like you were in the future for a while.
Yeah, dude, I felt bad.
Yeah, no, like this I feel like it would be so cool to have like a cyberpunk like future where there's just like an offshoot group on like a planet backwater of Anprims. Just like who have willingly regressed, right? Because like in like the Warhammer universe, there's like a concept called like feudal worlds and feral worlds that are basically like people who are either accidentally left behind or who are like kept in the dark by their overlords for nefarious purposes, but like are kept primitive. But I would love if there was just a philosophically grounded, like primitive on purpose world. That would be.
That's what I was thinking. Like this whole fucking thing, where I'm like, have you seen Dr. Stone or no?
No.
Basically, Dr. Stone. It's an anime and manga that's out right now. Where basically, like one day in our current society, everyone just gets petrified into stone, and then like 100,000 years go by, and then people start like cracking out of the stone, and basically it pits like a scientist who wants to like rebuild society, and then like basically like a student athlete who doesn't want to rebuild society because he thinks that it's evil and all the grown-ups were mean to him because they were part of society, and basically that's just the book. That's just the book, and it just basically shows that technology would win overall, like again, because people remember technology.
Because they don't even remember it.
I mean, we created something stronger than ourselves.
So you're gonna figure it out again. It's like the fucking wizard ending. Right?
Yeah.
It's like you'll unearth that fucking that ancient
evil
magic. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
whether it's fascism or technology or anything, it's going to happen. So you just have to, like, you can't just say, fuck this. You have to go, like, how do we stop this, essentially? And his stop doesn't stop anything. It's just regressing to something that will eventually lead to the end.
Yeah, you'd have to, honestly, like, psychologically edit people to
Which
not
he says
want
is bad,
to pursue.
apparently.
I know. Like, I think he has a problem with how human beings work, and that he's just never going to be satisfied. Like, it's like, a lot of people who have complaints about a lot of far-left stuff are like, but a lot of people are selfish, and people... want stuff, and like if you make a world where it's easy to just do things, like people are going to start taking stuff, they're going to take more and more and whatnot, and it's like, okay, well, you can socialize, socializing, but like you can socialize out some of those negative tendencies, like an over-reliance on technology, like sort of a blind devotion to systems. Like you can socialize that stuff out, but like you can't completely change the fact that people are going to like the things that are more convenient for them, and people are going to like the things that seem to improve their life in the short term.
One of the like stupidest things he said was something along the lines, and it was something that I said in like my sociology classes, where it's like, what if you have a problem with somebody who is playing loud music and the other person doesn't like that? Well, you deal with that. You try to find some conflict management. Like, that's going to happen. Like, there's going to be problems between, like, the person who lives, like, next to somebody who doesn't want to hear, like, loud music and whatnot. Like, there's gonna be
some kind of compromise.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be some, as he would put it, like a change in freedom or something, some sort of line like that. Like there was conflict management. Like that's what you do. You just don't go like, oh, I'm going to live in the woods and nobody can hear me anymore, and not deal with my problems or anything like that, because you can't do that. Like you just.
That's what you do if you're the true Chad, though. If you're the true Chad.
Did you know though? Like, fuck, man.
Even he had to go into town, man.
You got to go to the library, brother. He had to use the library still to find those people to bomb.
And he knew about that from the doc.
Something that would only exist with the entire previous industrial system. And, like, that doesn't completely invalidate someone's ideas. Like, that whole, like, you criticize the system, yet you participate in it.
Yeah.
Right, but, like...
Classic meme.
Oh, man, I totally lost what I was gonna...
Can I talk about his like prime way to like topple society, which is true dictatorships all around? Because that's my favorite reality that he.
Oh, you're talking about the accelerationist?
The wacky accelerationism.
Hell yeah, dude! And nothing but fucking dictators from sea to sign and she. That's how we fix society.
He's like, actually, dictators suck and fall apart way faster than like liberal democracies.
That'll bring about
so basically, he thinks that all people should just be like, yeah, we all need dictators. Like right now, let's get dictators going, just so that way they could all topple at the same time, and then every single regime that toppled the dictator would be like, you know what, fuck smartphones, fuck the technology, man, we're going back.
Hey man,
yeah, that's the thing, is just like how on earth are you gonna sell enough people on this ideology?
Well, like they had such a structure, like fascism and dictatorship is like built on such a structure. Like maybe you could be like, well, it was so structured then. Let's go with like the least structure. Maybe that'll be better because like it was so bad when we were like super structured and like had. Yeah, so
when you look at authoritarian countries, they generally have like a very dense, like singular structure. But when you look at countries that are more liberal, right, like your Western Europes and your Americas and Canadas and whatnot, the system is still everywhere, right? Like things that are living and generally have a higher satisfaction per person than
but
those,
a dictatorship is like the most complex from like a Ted Kaczynski mind. Like it is the most
I don't know. I don't know if he says they're more complex because, like, everything's top down, right? Everything is kind of, like, owned and operated by the government instead of a bunch of people who don't even realize they're a system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's hard to say.
You know, like, I think that's a lot of his thing is, like, a lot of the perpetuators of the system don't even understand that what they're doing like everything that they're doing always looks like it is helping someone, but it's actually a part of making people corrected into the system, like psychiatry and shit like that.
Well, I guess what I would be saying is like he thinks that complexity is bad, and dictatorships are bad, and they fall apart. So like therefore dictatorships are complex essentially.
Would he be like filed under like deep state fucking hokey people or no? I can't understand.
I think I had a communist history teacher in college. Surprise, surprise.
That's really.
But he had this
box.
moment where he was talking about like he's like, why are people talking about the deep state? It's just the state. The deep state is just the state. It's always just the state. It's the same thing. The deep state. It's like saying, like when people say crony capitalism, and it's like, no, that's just capitalism.
Yeah,
like,
we did a Patriot Act. Yeah, it's the state. We understand. Yeah. They just said it to everybody. We're like, yeah, we did it.
Yeah, we got the fucking CIA. Like we got all these branches, and like it's not saying that that's like the most evil thing ever, and that it needs to be destroyed. Because like maybe a little, but for the purposes of this, like. All of those actions are the exact same governing body that does all of the other actions. Like, it's never... There's not, like, some shadowy organization within the good government that's the bad government. Right? Like, Trump isn't like, oh, he's outside of the system. He's not part of the deep state. The deep state is some other guy. It's like, no, they're the same fucking team. They're all the state.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes they fight with each other a little bit, but, like, they ultimately all have the same interests.
Yeah, no, he just fucking hates society. Like, if the deep state existed, he probably wouldn't care because it's just fucking base society.
he just wants to be alone. That's the main thing. That's why I say like he's like Elliot fucking Rogers, where it's like he doesn't like he just wants to be on his own and not be affected by other people and their opinions and shit like that. That's what
doesn't want to be told to take his antidepressants because
usually that just means they don't want to feel bad anymore. Which is like, buddy.
Yeah,
I definitely have a fair amount of sympathy for the guy. Like, I don't even think he was all the way wrong about a lot of his stuff.
No, I mean, no. A lot of what he like details out is really like his writing is actually like very clear in like what he thinks are the problems in society and where those problems generate from like society. It's all very laid out, but like. Basically, the way they just doesn't stick the landing in any of them is actually like making it a movement or having like any sort of set path or goal.
Yeah,
everything he wants to do is for the betterment of society. Like he would be taken as someone who like wants good, but he just doesn't have anything else but that. Yeah, he's basically Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah, I was gonna say he feels like he basically wrote Brave New World or 1984. Where he's like, damn, dog, system's pretty fucked, right? Future's gonna be bad. And people went, yup.
But I mean, he's right.
Anyway.
And then he slaps the rainforest and he's like, do you know how much power process this puppy can hold?
He's got about like 1/3.
This is the world's air conditioning system.
He's got like 1/3 good ideas and then like 2/3 of like, shut the fuck up, dude. What are you complaining about here?
He also has like weird, like I don't know if he supports Nazis because in the other ones he's like Nazis are part of the that people are unsatisfied with society and so Nazis are basically bad and we don't like Nazis in society. And then later on he's like, but we like the rebels of society, like Nazis. They're fighting against like the society, and it's like I don't know where you really stand.
Well, he says some shit about like not being able to like not liking gay people and shit too. Like it's
well, so he's all about that like hyper individualism, like So if somebody wants to be a Nazi, like you can be mad at them if you're somebody they target, but if you're not somebody they target, like who are you to police their mind?
Well, that's what he says about like leftism too. Is like you don't have any like if you're a white leftist, you have no reason like to protest racism or anything like that.
Yeah, which is so weird because he keeps on talking about how like. All human beings are in the same struggle and, like, we need to free ourselves from this shit together. And, like, that's the root of why people who aren't in an identity group can still not want that identity group to be fucked with.
Well, I guess with him, he is in a sense, a class reductionist, or I guess a tech reductionist, where it's like...
I mean, it basically forms a class, or he uses the term bourgeois like a couple times.
Yeah, he does. It's very similar to like a Marx manifesto or whatnot, but instead of class or the bourgeois or money or anything like that, it's just tech. That's all it is. That's what fucking sucks. It's like he thinks that like if you have tech at all, somebody's going to abuse it, and it's like, well,
yeah, which I mean is true. Like it's a tool,
mm-hmm.
and it's a tool that makes you stronger. So everyone is going to use it if they want something done.
But if you have like people that are controlling the tech that are for the people, it won't be.
But you can't assure that you're always going to have that, right?
Sure.
Like that's why he talks about like revolutionaries and like sort of when he talks about like statist leftism, right? You can't have like a vanguard party that takes power for the people and then holds power in the best interest of the people. Like that's just like hoping for a good king.
Yeah, but then you're hoping for like. Like natural kings, I guess, like natural people that are going to come.
Yeah, that's the thing is like as soon as we go fucking primitive, then it's just the strong eat the weak.
Yeah,
like in a much more direct and obvious sense.
But there's less people that are growing up with like broken legs and stuff like that, man. There's less deformities and everything, so it's less problems or something like that. It's like
I'm just saying, there's more people who could be taken as slaves.
Yeah. It's like we have a society now that we can like potentially make like less people slaves or docile people. They can drive cars now and be more mobile and do jobs.
Oh, you mean they can integrate into the technological industrial system?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Yeah,
it's tough. I mean, a lot of times it's like pointing out the sort of problems of like, I don't know, it reminds me of like, is it sophistry where you're like, how do I know I'm not the only person, and the rest of you are all imagination?
I want to say that skeptic, like
radical skepticism or something.
Yeah, I want to say that's like
like it's like one of those things where it's like it's sort of an unattackable position because like you just go like, yeah, but there's always going to be some kind of person who can abuse the thing, and if you abuse it and that makes you win, then the person who wins is most likely to be somebody who abuses the thing.
And you just can't
and you can't get out of it. And it's like, yeah, you can't get out of it, which is very distressing. Like, I can see why that's such a disappointing, distressing thing.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't think that
anarcho-primitivism will do that.
Well,
really.
I mean, if we actually achieved it all as one culture and maintained it, sure, it would totally do what he's saying it would do, but like it wouldn't last more than a generation.
No. Well,
even at most it could last a couple hundred years.
Well, even if it did, at some point somebody's gonna fucking topple it. Like, it just is. Like, somebody's gonna figure out tech, and they're gonna, it's not gonna be guns, but they're gonna get bronze spears or something like that and stab somebody and kill the fucking...
Yeah, I mean, somebody's gonna rediscover metallurgy.
Yeah,
someone's gonna
like
rediscover
his whole
gunpowder.
like reason for like actually not sticking the landing on any of this is that he never actually puts into a specific how he wants a society to play out afterwards, because he makes it explicit earlier on that once you make a change in society that you won't actually know what that change is going to do. So he's basically just like, I don't know, but it'll be better than what we got, I guess. Like, that's basically it.
Which,
he said like the only thing that will like basically make people really want to go gung-ho about this is that the one thing we could depend on after everything will be nature, and nature will rise again, and that's what we're all going to be fighting for in the end, because I don't know what the fuck's going to happen, but trees are going to be happy again. Like, that's what we're fighting for.
But once again, though, like, you'd have to, like, have the he goes against, like, socially programming people, and you'd have to, like, socially program people to be against, like, technology and shit. Like,
first of all, he says that we need the elites of society, the smart people of society, to understand this manifesto, and then they would program the dum-dums with this, but using the same language, because we don't want to get it burned up.
He's like, don't dumb it down so much that smart people think it's lame, but like also don't make it so smart that dumb people don't want to read it.
Yeah, because
which is like, wow, that's a fucking Herculean task. But
yeah, because he talks about like, I don't want it to just be like rhetoric or whatnot. I want it to actually like resonate with people and everything. Which is,
I mean, that's what rhetoric is made to do.
I know, but he wants it to be about the principle, not about the way he says it. Which
good luck.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kept thinking with this, I was like, the saddest sort of thing to me looking at it is like, he did all this stuff and like no one followed.
Yeah, no, that's because I was trying to find some way that like people like actually like took this manifesto and then applied it to society in some way. And the only thing I found was that the 2007 Norway shooter used a lot of the manifesto in his own manifesto.
All right, I'll be back in just a second, but I will give you his influences in just a second.
Okay.
I mean, basically you can only find like eco-fascism to be like a huge source that's taken from this. That's
and like eco-fascism wants to establish like a nationalist system.
Yeah.
So they're completely missing the point.
No, he doesn't fucking even
because
support
it's an
that.
ideology with fascism in the name, it's stupid.
Yeah,
but
because he literally wants no politics whatsoever. So any political group that follows him is not going to accomplish the same fucking goal that he wants.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be like a political group, but like there's not even other like, I don't think there's other like lone wolf type actors who like do it, right? Like Freedom Club never became a big thing.
Yeah, no. There was never a we. It was one. And then the other people that took this to heart were just other philosophers who like basically just looked at it like basically as a weird way to basically structure current day society, and they were like, this is fucking cool, and then they put it down with the rest of the books, and that was it.
Yeah, no, I mean, like basically I listened to it, I had this little like, fuck dude, I think this guy was right about some stuff, and then I went, okay.
And then you heard him talk about what he thinks that the black culture is in society, which is soul food and rap music.
Well, so that's what he's basically trying to talk about, like, if you make it so that like black people need to do all of the things that the system does, you're making them system people first, black people second. But like I would definitely argue that like you need to be like to even have those superficial cultural aspects. A ton of that revolves around how the system already is, and that they're already system people.
Yeah.
They're just system people whose lives suck.
That was such a weird
less.
part too that I was like thinking about, where like he like imagines like impoverished groups like gays or like lesbians or African Americans or youth gangs, as he always puts them.
Yeah,
is being like somehow just not even in the system, like not even in. They're fucking outliers. Blah blah blah.
Like
they're not a part of it.
Totally in the system.
Yeah.
Especially by the time he was bombing, like, the amount of integration between the prison industrial complex and, like, the war on drugs and the black community, it's not, like, a fun system partnership, but it definitely is there.
And, like, why are youth gangs a thing? It's, because they don't have the fucking funds to fucking survive, or,
Yeah, I mean, and, like, there may be people who are less thoroughly integrated into the system than business executives and whatnot, but like they're still part of it. And like the thing too is all of your ideas about what the world could be and how you ought to accomplish it are all informed by your being in the system too. Like I don't know, I just like for most of this I saw just like there's not a way out of it. Like a lot of the problems he says are real. There's just not like
we're too connected
a way
to it.
Out.
Yeah, no, it's hard. And that's where I feel one of his better ideas is that like the longer we do this, the harder it will be to break the system. And it's like, the more we're connected to like even simple things like spell check and whatnot. If we were to break down like our technological system, we couldn't handle that. Like we couldn't be able to spell. Going to be able to like look up facts and stuff like that, like little things like
I think the only thing to do is like try to be mindful of how you use technology and just like try to keep yourself basically like, okay, so everything in the world is now a moving sidewalk or an escalator, but like you can still work out at home and try to not become completely lethargic, right? Like we have all of these cars, we have all of this, like, no one needs to not be fat, but there's still people who, like, want to be healthy just because they want to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's like, I feel like that's sort of how you have to approach technology, at least in your own life, is just like,
you got to keep your mind active. You got to fucking
and just sort of see stuff for being a part of the system, and try not to, like, you know, when something goes like, hey, let Google manage all of your, like, contacts, let them suggest new contacts and possibly new friends for you, you know, like,
be a little hostile
fucking,
that.
yeah, let them do everything with all of your information. Just take all the suggestions from the, like Google Maps will sometimes just, like, tell you, hey, go to this restaurant, and it's like, actually, could you fuck off? I don't want to go to a restaurant you tell me to go to. Like, I want to go where I want to go, or I'm not in the mood.
Did you see that recently, that, like, Congress can now look at your, or not Congress, but the justice system can now look at your browser history without a warrant?
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'm one of those people that Ted would call not needing a lot of power, so I'm a conscientious objector to technology and all of it. You know, I'll let Google have whatever they want on me, but I will be mad about it in my mind. That's my approach to it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is, like, I'm not gonna go out and fucking blow shit up, because, like, that's not going to stop anything from happening.
That's one of the weirder, like, revolutionary tactics that I hear, is, like, I'm going to do a bunch of bombings, and that's going to inspire people to do more bombings, which is going to inspire a collective of people to understand that, like, the system's fucked. Yeah. And that's what, like, Ted is trying to say. It's the same thing as, like, Siege, which is the white nationalist, anarchist, like, cookbook thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, we're gonna have a bunch of different, like, little bombings and whatnot, and that's gonna somehow bring a revolution from our
question
side.
mark new system.
Yeah, I don't get this frame of thinking, because, like, Ted did his little Unabombing, and there weren't really copycat killers or anything like that.
Yeah, like, I think if he would have been totally vindicated if there was, like, hundreds of those things. Like, where, on the other hand, like, white nationalist mass shootings are totally that. Like, he wanted to start a reign of stochastic terror for anti-technology reasons.
Yeah, but we didn't see
But it turns out people want the technology. What they care about more than their own personal freedoms is scary people.
Aaron, you said that you had, like, specific, like, examples.
Oh, for his influence.
Yeah, for things that he's influenced.
Oh. Well, I mean, we got, like, the paleos, like fucking Nick Fuentes and everything. He's definitely, like his rhetoric is very
Nick Fuentes,
similar
it
to
feels like a complete rejection of so much of his, like, I get that he goes, like, modern man needs to go back to the old days. But, like, Fuentes he's not for living in small communities, right? Like, he's not, he's for a state that tells you what kind of people can move into the country.
But that's the thing, is, like, what I feel like with Ted is that, like, he has a lot of conservative values. And that's what, like, a lot of right-wing people are drawn to, is that, like, he is all about going back to something more than just the 1950s household. It's going back to more like a, BC household or something like that, and that's what they're into. Like, he's the reactionary's reactionary, essentially.
Yeah, well, so it's like he's a true believer in that sort of, like, return to the earth idea that people like Fuentes and other paleo fucks, like, try to prey upon. Right? It's like when you see people who are, like, they're really the, like, ooh, I'm a rustic individual, I like to live off the land. They're usually not as involved in, like, politics and trying to, like, change people's minds for the most part.
Ted Kaczynski was, right? Though. He tried to change people's
he
minds.
was, and he's super rare for that kind of person, right? Like, every other fucking cabin dweller in Montana might have agreed with him on a lot of that stuff, and they would have been like, yeah, dude, fuck cities, fuck needing to own a car, fuck needing to own a phone, fuck needing to hold a job with these specific hours. And, like, see what I'm going out here.
Well, guys, we may not have anybody in the limelight that really agrees with the Unabomber, but good news is that the people over at Amazon in the YouTube comments do. And I got a couple snippets from my favorite Amazon reviews in the YouTube comments if you want to hear these Kaczynski boys.
Oh, these are reviews from the like an audiobook?
These are reviews from the Unabomber Manifesto to purchase it.
Oh.
We have Alicia A. A definite must. Only extreme liberals and conservatives will not agree with this book. The few objective balanced humans left in America will agree. However, you must have a good concrete knowledge of human history, culture, psychosocial behavior, and have read dystopian novels to understand. If not, you're screwed. Stay scrolling for the next camp-out date at Best Buy for the latest Apple computer you can't pay in cash. People also need to have an understanding of the genius thinking and inability to function socially. If you're a full-grown adult who owns or has owned a home, pays lots of taxes, has children and pays for their useless crap, saves for their college, not really an education, pays $2,000 for family medical plan with a deductible of $5,000, you don't sleep, you don't vacation, you barely eat, and you can't save for your old age, then you will fully feel and understand this book. Buy it and don't judge what has been said about this man. The media is the Antichrist that perpetuates hate and ignorance. 5 stars.
Damn, son.
Yeah.
I feel like I would have put in like, he seems nice, but I don't know.
He seems nice, but he's a little weird.
That Ted, he's got a good heart. I believe deep down,
Well, I mean, I really do think that his ideology stems from that very similar, like, I want the maximum number of humans to be personally satisfied.
No, he doesn't give a fuck about that. He wants
What? No, he totally does. Why would he care about the world and about technology and about a revolution?
The revolution would involve a lot of people dying. That's it.
It involves a lot of people dying, but he thinks all of those people are not even living. Right? Like, his belief is that the only way to live a fulfilling life is to live a life without technology and without a technological industrial system. So he's like, okay, the maximum number of people that can even be happy on Earth is the like couple tens of thousands that lived, or couple million before the Industrial Revolution. Right? And so like I think kind of like saying like, okay, so our current system allows more people to be alive, but it tortures them all the time. Like, maybe we ought to bring it down a little. Vegans want to eliminate the farming industrial complex, even though that would, in the short term, end the lives of many farm animals, and a lot more wouldn't be born. Mm-hmm. They don't think that that's, like, a good life for them.
Do you want to hear what Schubinator thought of the manifesto?
Sock it to me.
Sad that the brilliance of this man was wasted on terrorism, violence, and death. This book has many foretelling ideas about today, 20 years after being written, and about PC culture, censorship, and general absurdity of today. He may have been a madman, but he was incredibly intelligent. I can't add too much insight on this because I haven't read the whole thing yet. 5 stars.
Holy shit. That's
awful. The whole thing.
Who would embarrass themselves like that in a fucking review? Like, who put that on and then went, yeah, this makes me seem like a smart or thoughtful person.
He was fucking good, though. He was a genius. I'm going to finish
it. He was a genius. I'm not done with the book yet. I'm only on the part where he says political correctness is gay. That's the reason all the fucking Republicans like him, or not even Republicans, but like young far right people. That's why they like him. Is he goes, college professors they're too scared to let me have academic freedom.
Yeah, they're trying to be
politically correct. Yeah. And like maybe that was a bigger problem in the 80s, but like
no, it's very similar to now.
It sounds like a thing people bitch and moan about now, but it's just not a thing that I ever see fucking borne out.
Well, it's a lame way of looking at it, because like he talks about them trying to take power away essentially with leftists, right? Like he's trying to take power, And like, it's like, no, it's not. He's not trying to take power. But he's trying to make things like equal, right? Like that's the thing.
Well, and like it comes back to the, like what freedoms exactly are being stepped on by
exactly.
Like he's like like he talks about like the idea of preserving academic integrity and freedom, but it doesn't. There's no good example of like what in his like what is being blocked by politically correct types. What are feminists ruining? What are gay and disability activists ruining? Like, what is the problem that they're creating? He's just like, they're bad, right? Yeah, anyway, next paragraph. And, like, does not give an example. He's like, I'm pretty sure that all of them feel bad about themselves. We assume, the royal we assume that they all suck. Anyway, technology also sucks. Like, there's nothing on that subject. Like, did you guys catch anything that would be, like, a good, like, evidence for any of those beliefs about those kinds of people?
No, he doesn't really go into it. It's kind of, he just superimposes that you already have it ingrained in you because you're already mad at society. Like, that's basically his whole, like, way of getting to convince you of his ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels like you have to already be part of the system. I feel like the sort of... like the sort of conservative side of the system has the same, like, feminists are trying to prove that women are exactly the same as men. Fat phobia. Why is fat phobia bad? I don't understand and I don't want to understand.
Yeah, it's like his thing with fucking mental illness, too, where he's like, we see mental illness just reaching preposterous levels. And it's like, at the same time, we just started testing for mental illness. And also, we just have, like, more people that, like, a lot of his solid statistics don't really add up too well in what he's trying to basically say. It's... Yeah.
Because psychology is, like, real fucking new, too. Like, we only had it since, like, the late 19th century? Something like that?
Exactly, and that's exactly when it started to get bad.
Well, yeah, it got bad because you did some unethical-ass fucking experiments. It was
there's definitely... And, like, there's been a ton of this terrible shit that's, like, been done in the name of progress, right? Like, this reminds me of one of my boomerist professors went on this, like, rant about... He was the same guy who was like, man, back in, Berkeley, back in the day, they did the free speech protests, but now they don't want free speech at all. It's the complete opposite. And I'm like, do you have any examples of that? Because I think I know what you're talking about, dude, but that's not correct.
Did he give you anything?
I think he was talking about, like, the time that protesters shut down Milo from Berkeley, which is like... What a non-issue.
Me and Aaron were there.
It just feels like fucking nothing.
We were there. We picked up garbage cans. And
that's the dark underbelly of modern leftism. Yeah. But like he was like he's like, oh, don't, he's like, you can trust liberals, but like never trust somebody that identifies as a progressive, because the progressives back in the day, they wanted eugenics, and it was bad. And like, he has like a personal story about how eugenics negatively affected like his own family. And it's like, okay, but that isn't the thing that anyone's doing anymore. Or like currently the people who want eugenics are conservatives, because progressivism and conservatism aren't about picking one idea and always doing it, right? It's about trying to pick the old idea or trying to pick the new idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same Democrats were for fucking slavery, like, argument.
Yeah, it feels about that quality. And so, like, I don't know, I guess because we're hitting about an hour and a half.
Do you want to hear one more review? It's pretty good.
Yeah, give me one of those, and then we'll have some closing thoughts.
All right. This is by...
Unless you have a few reviews.
I got good ones saved up, but this is probably the last one. I'll do one more short one after this. This is by Love Cats. I now live naked in the woods and hunt raccoons for breakfast. If you come this far and are reading reviews, just go for it. You'll enjoy it. And if not, you will have at least challenged your beliefs in some way and are ready to live a better life. Whether that means sticking to your beliefs even harder or questioning them, I don't know. But you'll be happy if you read this. That was by Love Cats.
Fair. I feel like that's pretty fair. Love Cats. I give Love Cats' review a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, it's probably one of the best. It's probably one of the best. It's got a nice, funny, nice funny header
it's
to get
silly,
you.
But it's genuine, and it's not too pushy.
And then the last one comes from the YouTube comments, which is by Swift. Unism is gay. The only progress and redemption humanity can make is through Christ. One of my favorites.
Facts.
Wowzers. Oh my.
He goes on to have basically an argument in the comments with the guy who made the YouTube video, which is, I think you misunderstood. I didn't mean you as in person, unism or gay. I meant the philosophy is, and by that I don't mean literally homosexual either, but rather akin to how the gay LGBT movement is social conditioning. It's like you catch on to what Kaczynski is trying to explain, but then prescribe more of the nonsense that's supposed to heal society.
Hell yeah.
So not only that, but he's woke. That's why I like Swift.
That's
super woke.
Substantial.
All right, I'm done with my reviews.
All right, for sure. So, any like I was thinking sort of like an expectation versus reality of this whole manifesto, or like if any of you guys had any preconceived notions that did or did not bear out. Anything like that?
I just didn't know how fucking good Kaczynski was at what he did. Like, just as being a bomber, like, one of the best. One of the best. Also, just basically much better writer than I thought he was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot of mumbled up garbage, but it's very easy to sort of, like, see where his ideas are going, and how he leads you there, and how he actually writes them all down. It's a structured manifesto. I would recommend that someone would read this, personally. I would say, like, you can sit down, read this, and you probably come up with, like, some ideas, but you probably see the gaping holes at the same time. But
yeah, I'd agree.
End of the day, I think that Ted bit off a lot more than he could chew and just didn't have it all there before he decided to bomb people.
Okay. I'd say also, yeah. Aaron, go.
Yeah, no, I liked what he had to say. I gotta say, like, when it comes to, like, environmental shit, he's not wrong. A lot of this shit is pretty correct. It's just, like 2/3 of what he's trying to say is all about discrediting liberal or leftist media. It's so silly. But, like, yeah, his critique on modern culture or technology is very... succinct. It's good shit. It's very good shit. And it makes me want to look into more of green anarchists and whatnot and their philosophy on things, because they are the ones that are most what's the word, energized by his sort of movement and whatnot.
Okay. Yeah, no, I feel like with that, like, his criticisms of a lot of the, like, thought processes that are associated with the system, it becomes kind of like a it's not exactly circular logic, but it's one of those like, it becomes almost like a conspiracy theory where it's like, oh, if you disagree with my criticisms, like, you've just been indoctrinated into the system, and, like, because you think my idea is bad, what you're actually saying is my idea does not fit within the system. Therefore, it's right.
I mean, I'd say you're not wrong. It's pretty conspiratorial, the way he puts it, especially with, like, saying society, you know? Like, there's not many people that can get away with, like, saying, like, I'm criticizing...
criticizing it as a whole, it's tough. You know, and he's observing general trends, and I think it's a more general, it's not a super specific
thing. Works for his critique, yeah.
Yeah. For me, I was, like, hoping against hope that I would, like, come away with something extra from this, or, like, have some sort of new idea, and I was hoping, like, that I would get some sort of, I don't know, new... I got a little bit of a new perspective. I think about stuff, and, like, every now and then it's just good to be reminded, like, hey,
nature's cool.
Well, yeah, nature's cool, but also just, like, try to keep aware of what exactly you are and aren't dependent on, and, like, you know, it'll definitely give me some insight when I talk to people who like it a lot and, you know, stuff like that. And I'd say overall I like it, and like
It's fine, yeah.
and this might be another topic for another time, but like still have mixed feelings about whether or not I agree with sending out the mail bombs.
Well, it's political violence. I don't think that's necessarily a... Well, I guess it is. Would be another topic, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a whole nother can of worms, but like...
Ted
I don't know.
as a person we barely touched on, and like him as a person, almost cooler than his manifesto. Almost cooler.
Do you know the term...
Yeah.
Do you know the term Lil Eichmann?
Is that a SoundCloud rapper?
No. No, it's a term for a...
It's a boomer term.
It is a boomer term. It's a term for... So an Eichmann is somebody during the Nuremberg trials. It was
Adolf Eichmann.
Adolf Eichmann. Yeah, it was a Nazi who was put on trial, who didn't really think that like what they were doing was a big deal. Like they were gassing Jews, but they didn't give a fuck, that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
So the term Little Eichmann is just like somebody who's like doing a big deal to, like they're contributing a lot to a problem without really noticing it, that sort of thing. So like they are contributing to environmental negatives that they don't really notice, or like they're an advertiser, you know, that sort of thing. That makes sense.
Yeah. So wait, are you trying to say that like other people are those, or are you trying to say like Kaczynski is those?
No, Kaczynski isn't. That's who he's killing. He killed him.
Yeah. It's because like he doesn't seem to have like, I don't know, picking the people he picked to bomb, like
He only killed
I'd
one
say
person,
I kind of put it in
think.
the same camp as like, you know, like when we go to other countries and assassinate,
Sure.
you know, leaders or kill dissidents or like,
Sure.
you know, and again, like you know, people in the police or the military shooting someone, like there is an internal sort of justification that happens, and sometimes that holds and sometimes it doesn't. And so like I think, you know, one thing that I kind of respect with him is that he seems really ideologically consistent, as
To an
like
extent.
compared. Well, yeah, like he didn't ever like break his like his killing wasn't like a self-serving. It seemed at least not to be like the same level of like a self-serving, like I need to make up for something in my life kind of killing that like a lot of other serial killers have. He definitely feels more of a terrorist than a serial killer.
Yeah,
It's just
he saw the killings as just a means to an end.
Okay.
Yeah, like if he could have like EMP bombed a bunch of factories and that would have done better for him, like he
would have.
you know,
done
I don't
that,
think
yeah.
he cares to kill people, but he
He's
also
consequentialist,
doesn't
yeah.
see them, you know, like in the same, you know, he sees them as worth killing because of what they represent,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which, you know, is its own kind of problem in a sense. But like, I mean, in the other sense, like you could easily see a situation where, you know, someone like decides because they've been, you know, like that game The Saboteur. Did you ever play that, where you're like an Irish infiltrator trying to blow up Nazi stuff?
Man, I don't play no Xbox 360.
Yeah, I got no idea what that is.
I don't know if that was Xbox 360 or Xbox Classic. I haven't played video games in a long time. But like, yeah, I remember it being a game, but like, you know, you're a hero basically, and you're going around because this system is fucked, and you're blowing shit up. Or like the movie Surrogates. I haven't seen it, but I saw the preview, where Bruce Willis hits all the robots with the bat.
Hell
Remember
yeah.
that preview?
Not really, but hell.
Oh shit. Okay, well, to the audience, watch the preview for Surrogates and tell me that's not the same thing.
It's gonna be sick as
It
shit.
is. You know, like, yeah, if we were on board with his view of how the system works, then like the killings would feel 100% justified. Like they're not like personal revenge killings from what I've seen.
Yeah.
But, so
All right, I think
did nothing
that's-
wrong, maybe a little of an overstatement, but
Are you gonna change
You
your
heard it
life?
here,
not
guys.
that bad.
From a radical
I would-
point of view, a radical boy's point of view, nothing
Yep.
we've done was wrong.
We sound like some radical dudes right now, I'll tell you. And that was episode 1 of TEDPILLED, a irregularly updating. I'm calling it now. It's not going to be weekly or bi-weekly. Talk with some dudes about some dudes.
Real talk.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's good to cut.
no,
I think that's good to cut.
bye.
Okay.
God damn it, you motherfucker. God
Thanks
damn
a
it.
million, Aaron. All
That's
right,
not
we
me.
can stop
That's
the
my
recording.
fault. What are you
Stop
talking about? Alright, how do I give you the recording?